She said yes. Then she looked down at the ring on her finger, and for just 1 second, her smile dropped. I saw it happen. I was still on one knee, my heart still pounding from asking the biggest question of my life. And I watched the woman I loved try to fix her face before anyone else noticed. But I noticed, and 3 weeks later, I finally understood why. Let me start from the beginning, because this story isn't really about a ring at all. It's about how a piece of jewelry ended up showing me things about my relationship that I had been too blind, or maybe too scared, to see. My name is Jake. I'm 26, and I had been dating my girlfriend Emily for almost 3 years before I proposed. We met in college, back when neither of us had any money, any real plans, or any idea what we were doing with our lives. We grew up together in a way. We watched each other change jobs, move apartments, figure out who we wanted to become. By the time I decided to propose, I felt like I knew this woman better than I knew myself. I'm not rich. I work a normal job, nothing glamorous, and I had been saving for almost a year to buy a ring I actually felt proud of. I wanted something that meant something, not something that just looked impressive. I picked a ring with a smaller center stone, but a design I thought was beautiful, delicate, the kind of thing that felt like it matched who Emily was as a person. At least, who I thought she was. I planned the proposal for months. Nothing over the top, no big crowd, no hired photographer hiding in the bushes. Just the two of us on the same beach where we had our first date, right as the sun was going down. I wanted it to feel personal. I wanted her to remember the moment, not the performance. The night came together perfectly. We walked along the water, talked about nothing important, laughed about an old memory from freshman year. Then I stopped walking, pulled the ring out of my jacket pocket, and got down on one knee before I could talk myself out of being nervous. She said yes, almost before I finished the sentence. She was crying. I was crying. And for a moment, everything felt exactly the way I had pictured it in my head for months. Then she looked at the ring. It was quick, barely a second. But I saw her eyes flicker. Her smile tightened just slightly before she pulled it back into place. I told myself I was imagining it. Maybe she was just overwhelmed. Maybe it was happy tears playing tricks on her expression. I pushed the thought away and let myself enjoy the moment, because it was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, and I didn't want anything to ruin that. For the next few days, everything felt normal. We told our families, we told our friends, we celebrated. But something small kept bothering me in the back of my mind. Emily used to talk about her engagement constantly before it even happened. She had pictures saved of rings she loved. She talked about posting the moment online the second it happened, tagging every friend she had. But now that it was real, she wasn't posting anything. When people asked to see the ring, she would show them quickly, almost like she wanted the conversation to move on to something else. I told myself I was overthinking it. Relationships go through phases, and maybe she was just tired, or busy, or not in the mood for attention that week. But some quiet part of me knew something wasn't sitting right with her about that ring. It took her best friend getting engaged 2 weeks later for me to finally understand what it was. Emily's best friend, Rachel, had been dating her boyfriend for less than a year. Nobody expected them to get engaged so soon, but when Rachel posted the photos online, the whole group chat lit up with excitement. Emily seemed happy for her, at least on the surface. She commented all the right things, sent the right messages, acted exactly how a best friend should act. But 2 days later, I found her sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at her phone, scrolling through Rachel's engagement photos for what must have been the 10th time. I asked her what was wrong, and she quickly locked her phone and said she was just tired. I let it go because I still didn't want to believe what my gut was telling me. That weekend, we went to a small get-together with a few of our friends, including Rachel and her new fiancé. It was supposed to be a relaxed night, just food and drinks, and catching up. But the moment Rachel walked in, her ring caught the light from across the room. It was big, really big. The kind of ring that makes people gasp a little when they see it for the first time. Everyone crowded around her to look at it, complimenting the cut, the size, the way it sparkled. Emily smiled along with everyone else, said all the right things, told Rachel it was gorgeous. But I was watching her the whole time, and I noticed how her hand slowly moved into her lap, almost like she was hiding her own ring without even realizing she was doing it. Later that night, one of our friends, someone who has never had much of a filter, looked at Emily's hand and said, without thinking, "Wait, is that it? I thought yours would be bigger, since you guys have been together so much longer than they have." The room went quiet for just a second. Emily laughed it off, said something about how size doesn't matter, that she loved her ring because of what it meant, not what it looked like. But I saw her face in that moment, and it was the same face I had seen on the beach the night I proposed. That same flicker. That same forced smile trying to cover something underneath it. We didn't talk about it that night. We didn't talk about it the next day either. I kept waiting for her to bring it up, to tell me what was actually going on in her head, but she didn't. Instead, she started acting a little different around me, quieter sometimes. She would catch herself staring at her ring when she thought I wasn't looking, turning her hand slightly like she was trying to see it from a different angle, maybe hoping it would look bigger from another side. I started feeling something I didn't expect to feel after getting engaged. I started feeling insecure, not about loving her, but about whether what I gave her was actually enough for her. I had worked so hard to save for that ring. I had picked it because I thought it represented something real between us, something that didn't need to impress anyone else. But watching her reaction over those 2 weeks made me start questioning everything. One night, I finally asked her directly. I asked if something was bothering her about the ring. I expected her to deny it, to tell me I was imagining things, the same way I had tried to convince myself for weeks. Instead, she went quiet for a long time, staring down at her hands in her lap. Then she said the words that changed the way I saw our entire relationship. She said, "I love the ring because it's from you, but I hate how it makes me feel when other people look at it." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, letting her words sink in, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. I asked her what she meant, even though some part of me already understood exactly what she meant. She started explaining, slowly at first, like she had been holding this in for weeks and didn't know how to let it out without hurting me. She said it wasn't about the money. She said she knew how hard I worked, how long I saved, and she genuinely loved that the ring came from real effort and real love. But she also admitted that ever since Rachel got engaged, she couldn't stop comparing. Every time someone looked at her hand and then looked at Rachel's hand, she felt this small, ugly feeling crawl up inside her, like she was being judged, like people were quietly deciding that her relationship meant less because the diamond was smaller. I felt my throat tighten listening to her. Not because I was angry yet, but because I felt like something between us had cracked, and I didn't know if it could be fixed. I asked her if she regretted saying yes. She said no, immediately, without hesitation, and for a second that made me feel a little better. But then she said something that hurt more than I expected. She said, "Sometimes I wonder if I would feel differently about all of this if the ring just looked a little more impressive." That sentence sat between us, in the silence of our apartment, for what felt like forever. I got up and walked into the kitchen because I needed a second away from her, away from that sentence, away from the version of her I was suddenly seeing for the first time. I wasn't just hurt that she compared rings. I was hurt because it made me wonder if she loved me for who I actually was, or if part of her had been quietly measuring me against some standard I didn't even know I was supposed to meet. When I came back into the room, she was crying. Not the happy kind of crying from the night I proposed. A different kind, the kind that comes from guilt. She said she hated herself for feeling this way, that she knew it was shallow, that she knew it shouldn't matter, but she couldn't turn the feeling off no matter how hard she tried. She said her mom had made a comment too, something small about how the stone looked a little modest compared to her cousin's ring from last year. And that comment had been sitting in the back of her mind ever since. That's when things started getting complicated between our families. A few days later, at a dinner with both sets of parents, my mother overheard Emily's mother make a similar comment to one of the aunts. Something about hoping Emily wouldn't be disappointed long-term with such a simple ring. My mother didn't say anything at the table, but in the car on the way home, she was furious. She defended me the entire ride, saying I had worked hard for that ring, that it was picked with love, and that nobody had the right to make Emily or her family feel entitled to something bigger just because they wanted to show off to relatives. Now it wasn't just Emily and me anymore. It became a bigger issue between our families, with opinions flying from every direction. Some of my friends told me I should be upset with Emily entirely, that her reaction showed she cared more about appearances than about me. Others told me I needed to understand where she was coming from, that social pressure from family and friends can mess with anyone's head, even people who genuinely love their partner. I didn't know who was right anymore. All I knew was that the moment I had planned for months, the moment that was supposed to be the beginning of our life together, had turned into something neither of us expected. And somewhere in the middle of all that confusion, I had to decide what actually mattered to me and what kind of marriage I was walking into. For almost 2 weeks, things between Emily and me felt strange. We were still together, still engaged, still sleeping in the same bed every night, but there was this quiet distance that hadn't been there before. We talked less about the wedding and more about everything else, almost like we were both avoiding the one topic that actually needed to be discussed. I spent a lot of that time thinking, really thinking, about what she had said. At first, I only felt hurt. But the more I sat with it, the more I started to understand something I hadn't wanted to admit right away. Emily wasn't a bad person for feeling insecure. She had grown up watching her cousins and friends turn engagements into a kind of competition, always comparing ring size, comparing proposals, comparing whose fiancé did it right. She had been swimming in that pressure her whole life without even realizing how deep it had gotten into her head. It didn't make her shallow. It made her human, and honestly, a little bit sad, because she had learned to measure love in carats instead of in effort. That didn't erase the hurt I felt, though. I still remembered the look on her face the night I proposed. I still remembered watching her hide her hand at that dinner. Those moments were real, and I couldn't pretend they didn't happen just because I understood where they came from. One night, I finally told her everything I had been holding back. I told her how much it hurt to feel like the ring I picked with real thought and real love wasn't enough in her eyes, even for a moment. I told her that I didn't propose to impress her family, or her friends, or strangers scrolling through social media. I proposed because I wanted to spend my life with her, and I believed the ring represented exactly that. Nothing more, nothing less. She cried again, but this time it felt different. She said she had spent so much energy worrying about what other people thought that she almost missed what the moment actually meant. She said watching me explain how hurt I was made her realize that somewhere along the way, she had let outside opinions get louder in her head than her own feelings for me. We talked for hours that night, longer than we had talked about anything in years. She admitted that she needed to work on separating what she actually wanted from what she felt pressured to want. I admitted that I needed to stop assuming the worst every time she went quiet, and actually ask her what was going on instead of building stories in my head. It wasn't a perfect fix. Trust doesn't rebuild in one conversation, and even now, months later, I still catch her glancing at her ring sometimes with an expression I can't quite read. I don't know if that feeling ever fully goes away for her, or if it's something she'll keep working through for years. What I do know is that she stopped hiding her hand. She started wearing the ring proudly again, posting pictures, telling the story of the beach and the sunset without skipping over the parts that used to embarrass her. Our families eventually calmed down too, though there are still a few tense moments at gatherings when the topic of rings or weddings comes up. My mother still hasn't fully forgiven the comment Emily's mother made, and I don't think she ever completely will. Emily's mother, for her part, never apologized directly, though Emily told me privately that she thinks her mom regrets how much she pushed that idea onto her. Looking back now, I don't regret the ring I chose. I don't regret proposing the way I did, without the crowd, without the show. Just the two of us on the beach that meant something to us. But I do think about that flicker on her face more than I probably should. I think about how something as small as a piece of jewelry almost exposed a crack in our relationship that had nothing to do with love, and everything to do with the noise the rest of the world puts in our heads about what love is supposed to look like. So here's what I want to ask you. Was Emily wrong for feeling that way, even for a moment? Or is that kind of pressure just something almost everyone secretly feels and never admits out loud? And if you were me, would you have handled that conversation the same way? Or would you have reacted differently the moment you saw her face change? Let me know what you honestly think in the comments below.